You're listening to the Legal Talk Network.
Hello, I'm Bob Ambrogi.
And I'm Monica Bay.
We've been writing about law and technology for more than 30 years.
That's right. During that time, we've witnessed many changes and innovations.
Technology is improving the practice of law, helping lawyers deliver their services faster and cheaper.
Which benefits not only lawyers and their clients, but everyone.
And moves us closer to the goal of access to justice for all.
Tune in every month as we explore the new legal technology and the people behind the tech
here on Law Technology Now.
Hello, this is Dan Linna. Welcome to Law Technology Now on the Legal Talk Network. My guests today are James Lee, co-founder and CEO of LegalMation, and Thomas Suh, co-founder and COO at LegalMation. James, Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you guys here while we're in New York at Legalweek. Why don't we just start with you guys telling us a little bit about your background as lawyers and journey to founding a legal tech startup. James, you want to kind of kick things off?
Yeah, so I started my career at Morgan Lewis and then at Quinn Emanuel. And at Quinn, as fifth-year lawyers, I and a few people decided to leave and start our own law firm, our boutique law firm. And we quickly realized that we didn't actually know everything that we thought we did. And we also realized that large firms were still going to bring in armies to these cases that we were on. And we needed to find better ways to litigate. And so we needed to act as commandos. And that meant that we needed to find ways to basically multiply the type of work that we were doing. And technology was that solution. And so over the years, we had grown our boutique firm to a pretty good size, about 40 lawyers, developed a good reputation. And to carry that forward, that's when we started to look at AI about 3 years ago, and that's how we started to dabble in it. Really tested the limits of what AI can do and what it couldn't do, and LegalMation was the result.
And Thomas, so you guys met when you were at Quinn, is that right? Or tell us kind of how.
No, I've had the pleasure of knowing James prior to working together. We were friends socially, and while he was at Quinn, this man always had the entrepreneurial spirit. While at Quinn, he was always thinking about new businesses and new ideas, and I always told him, "You're crazy. You're just crazy." He's still crazy to this day. And I think that's what makes possible what we have done today, which is not afraid to try new things. So I did join him at LTL, the firm that he started about 10 years ago. And we started working together with the purpose of growing the firm into a nationally recognized litigation boutique. And that's what brought us together. And this is just a continuation of that desire to build something from our experiences, but really to make the practice of law more interesting.
Well, and you guys have gotten a fair amount of publicity. You've been written up quite a few times. I was very impressed when I first saw what you were doing out at the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium annual meeting. But for our listeners who haven't seen your product or heard about it, can you tell us kind of what it does?
Go ahead.
He always gives me the tough questions, I got to say. So we're a legal tech company, certainly, but we're solving specific pain points in litigation. And what we did was our goal was to really tackle some of the volume process-driven, sort of tedious tasks that are involved in litigation, particularly in the early stages of litigation. And we set out not to just create a tool that will incrementally improve some efficiencies or incrementally help attorneys do their jobs a little bit faster, cheaper, better. We really wanted to see if we can use AI to draft work product that associates and paralegals and other attorneys at firms actually create. And so when we went back and looked at our own law firm and really looked at the early stages of litigation and what were some of the tedious volume-driven tasks that our associates were performing, which they didn't enjoy, they found very, in the words of one of the reporters that covered us, very soul-crushing. That's what we decided to focus on. And today what you have is, with our system, you can literally automate the drafting of answers to complaints, outgoing written discovery, for instance, interrogatories and requests for production. And also, you're able to respond to discovery requests. At least we're able to create a shell to the response with targeted objections to those requests. So what we've done is we've created essentially a new category, and that is the category of automating actual litigation work product.
All right. So when I've told a couple of law firms about this, because I was a former litigator, and
Right.
and actually, in a lot of ways, I'm surprised that it's taken this long for someone to create a product like what you guys created. So I think I see power in it in a lot of different ways. I've had a couple attorneys say to me, though, like, "Oh, we have templates, and we're
Right.
pretty efficient at doing this." I mean, why is this better than having a template to do these tasks?
Because a template is not a smart and dynamic system. And that's the big difference between template-driven solutions and what we've developed, which is an AI machine learning-based system. So, think of it as the other people might have a TurboTax type of approach where they ask questions and then it leads into the next sort of phase of the question and then another question, and then at some point it delivers some output. Our system, we wanted to design a system end-to-end where you can just simply upload a complaint, and 2 minutes later you get the finished work product on par with what a good first or second year lawyer would be doing.
I want to keep diving a little bit deeper in this, right? Because I think one of the challenges we have in the legal industry right now is it's really easy to say that you're using artificial intelligence and then no one really asks questions. They don't know how to ask questions, maybe even. So, and you mentioned machine learning. Tell us a little bit more about the machine learning approach that you're using.
Well, in various conferences, the way I explained artificial intelligence is simply think of it as a pattern recognition machine. That's all it is. The more patterns you can show it, the more examples, it's going to find patterns within the examples that you give it. And the way it works is you can think of it almost like a coin sorter, where you take unstructured information, whether you have a bunch of coins, you put it through a hopper, and what the AI platform does is it starts looking through and sorting very quickly, in this case, words or phrases, to put it into neat little sort of data fields or entity relationship pairs. And we take that information once it's been classified, and then we start refining it even further using several different techniques to essentially reach the same conclusions a lawyer might be reaching. And so what we're trying to do is we're mimicking what a good first or second year litigator might be doing under the similar circumstances.
And what platform are you using for the machine learning?
So we use a few, actually. We use IBM Watson for some of the functions, and we have built a couple of other AI classifiers on top of that to refine the decision making. So what we're finding is that one AI classifier isn't the best for everything. And the way we sort information is actually quite strenuous. We take several different approaches to take a look at the same sentence or a paragraph in order for us to determine what is the best way to sort of parse that paragraph and then to obtain the information that we want. So sometimes Watson works great. And if it doesn't, then we're using a second classifier. If that doesn't work, we're going to use a third classifier using different well-known techniques in the machine learning world.
Sometimes when I hear some of these problems that we're approaching discussed, it's framed just as a data problem. So there's a lot of variance across attorneys. And I've heard some people say, well, that means we're going to need a lot of data. I mean, I wonder actually if those approaches are going to work very well, because there are some areas where we don't seem to have standards, best practices. And if you could just keep adding more data and there's tons of noise and variance in the data, I mean, I don't know where that's going to get you. How did you guys kind of solve for that in your solution here? I mean, how much kind of expert input is required versus just looking across the documents?
I'll handle that, Thomas.
Thank you.
I think the best answer to that is it depends. And what I mean by that is it depends on the domain. It depends on what you're asking the system to do. It depends on whether the likelihood of ambiguities exist. The likelihood that there's more ambiguities means that you have to give it more examples to identify the different classifications that you want to teach it. I think the mistake that a lot of people are making in the AI world, and you read articles in the newspaper about medical institutions that have spent millions of dollars and it just failed. I think what's going on there is they were probably using an unsupervised learning process, probably led to believe that you can just feed tons of data in the form of medical journals and somehow it's going to magically learn medicine. That's not how it works. You frequently do have to use a supervised learning process, particularly for what I'm going to call professional languages. Legalese is one of those languages. It's not normal English. You cannot use a standard AI dictionary that can parse that natural language. You have to teach a system what a plaintiff is and all the variations, what a defendant is and all the variations, and all the ways a defendant has been accused of screwing over a plaintiff. All those classifications you have to think of. And we're not talking about 10 or 20. I mean, we're talking about several hundred that you have to think about, and then think about the combinations of those pairs in order to come up with the right ontology or the classification scheme that you're going to get the best results possible.
And if I understand the way you guys built your system too, I want to keep drilling just a little bit deeper on this. It's not like if I told you, oh, well, we're going to do this for a certain type of law in California, and I'm going to give you every complaint and every answer. You guys would say, well, I don't think I want every complaint and every answer. You were actually a bit more targeted. You wanted specific type of information, data to train your system. And again, I think this is something that's missed frequently when people talk about this, about, well, you just need data. Well, but what's the quality of the data? And
right. So, this is part art and part science. The art part is coming up with a good combination of cases to expose the machine learning platform to enough examples where it's going to be able to find patterns, right? And so our system is heavily curated. It's curated by lawyers. And what we do is we're really looking at the samples, the type of cases that would be that we think the system is going to encounter. And what we'll do is we'll go source publicly filed complaints, and we're going to start basically teaching the system how to identify all the necessary claims. It's a curated process, an iterative process where, for instance, there was a time when our motor vehicles domain didn't do a good job identifying traffic violations. And so what we did is we went out and we curated and found really good examples of traffic violation cases and then fed that into the platform. And then we did the learning models and then tested. And sure enough, it was able then to identify traffic violations. And so that's a sort of iterative process that people have to go through. It's a long process. It's not a magical process where you do it once and like I Dream of Jeannie, you blink your eyes and something comes out. It doesn't work like that. It takes sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50 times before of constant testing, retesting, uploading, testing, retesting to see whether you're getting the results that you're getting.
And is this, the way you've deployed it in most places, is this like an online learning system? It continues to learn as you go on? Like, is there continuous training? How do you handle that part of it?
Yeah, so that underscores the biggest problem in the AI machine learning world, which is data bias. A few weeks ago, we were listening to that lecture at Stanford about data bias, and it's the biggest problem. And the way that we solved it is when clients run new complaints through our system, it doesn't affect the learning domain. And the reason why we made it that way is we didn't want a client or a law firm or an insurance company to run a certain number of claims of a certain type to skew the results in any particular direction. So what we do is every couple of weeks, we're going to look at the results and see, do we need to supplement the domain? Are we missing anything? Let's update the domain. Well, let's find new samples. Let's put that in. And so that's the curation part that I'm telling you about is that we want to keep that pristine as possible so that we don't end up with that data bias that I think some other companies are likely to experience.
And what jurisdictions now do you handle? What types of cases? I mean, where are you guys available at this point, LegalMation?
Sure. So we started in California because we're California lawyers, and we practice in California.
Yeah.
And the office space we already had, so that was one way to keep overhead low. But California, and we have Texas, we have New Jersey, and Florida is coming online in a couple of weeks, and shortly after that, New York. So we are targeting sort of the large states in terms of volume, not necessarily population, maybe with the exception of New Jersey, which we sort of moved up the rank because of a large customer who wanted to get to New Jersey first. Okay. In terms of practice domains, we started with employment litigation, employment cases. Then we moved on to all sorts of tort cases, so product liability, slip and fall type cases. You got, what else do we have there on torts? All torts, all injury type cases. Motor vehicles is included
pharmaceutical
as well.
cases.
Pharma product liability. And the third domain is insurance bad faith cases. Yep.
And we have financial services that's in alpha mode right now that we expect to beta test maybe in a few more weeks.
So essentially we're targeting the large volume cases that really makes up for about 80 to 90% of the litigation docket in the country.
Okay. Yeah, and it sounds like you guys are starting to tackle more and more complex areas as well, because I know when there were first some stories, it was heavily discussed about Walmart, handling cases for Walmart, and a lot of lawyers said, oh, well, slip and fall cases, but I don't do slip and fall cases. I do much, fancier things, and so this isn't going to affect me. I mean, where do you think, how far can you keep going kind of with this model to automate portions of the litigation process, drafting documents and so on?
I actually think we can go pretty far. And the reason why I say that is, people think of us as a company that can produce answers and discovery, but that's not what we really do. Our real value is the ability to take unstructured information in the form of the complaints or documents, use a machine learning AI process to structure it, and then to classify it in many, many, many different ways. And when I say many, 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 I'm talking about each of our domains, we probably measure about 500 entity relationships. And if you were to look at the number of permutations and the number of combinations you can get, at 10 positions, which actually isn't that many, like plaintiff, defendant, claims, injury date, at 10 positions, that ends up being 0.89 octillion number of possible combinations. That's 10 to the 27th power. That number should scare everyone in this room because we are barely scratching the surface on what we can do with the system. And so, what the next products that we're thinking about is to use that ability to take unstructured information and structure it in so many different ways that we can then deploy better analytics, case research, even responses to simple motions, maybe even preparing motions to dismiss. There's so many things that we can do that it's really exciting to think about. If we had a blue sky session, we can probably map out 20 things that we can do just by our ability to take unstructured data and then to structure it.
And who are some of your customers right now? Like, we know Walmart because that's been in the news, and I know that there's some other that have been publicly disclosed. So, can you disclose the ones you can and tell us maybe some of the other where you think you see opportunities? Or
well, James is looking at me like I should answer that question, even though we're subject to NDAs for a lot of them. The truth is, we can't disclose. I would say a majority of our large clients, but I will say, Ogletree is one that we can mention. Ogletree Deakins has been a phenomenal partner for us. They are really led by Patrick DiDomenico, their CKO. They've been at the forefront of change and embracing technology for the practice of law. And we've entered into a special partnership with them. So they're going to assist us, and we're going to work together on a lot of things that probably can't disclose right now, but that's one company. We actually serve very large insurance companies as well, but we can't name the names. And a number of, let's just say, a great number of Fortune 100 companies are currently in pilot testing and about to roll things out. So we're very excited.
So tell me more about using this kind of like for early case assessments. That's something we've chatted about before. Maybe is anyone really starting to try to make progress with that? Like really trying to build out a model for predicting where a case is going to go and being able to use the power to analyze a complaint when it comes in right from the beginning to...
Yeah, so nothing like that is available now, but that's something we're going to be working on. And that's the real exciting part about all this. To give a concrete example, if you want analytics on a wrongful termination case, you can get that today. You can get a wrongful termination report, and it can give you ranges about how much you should spend, what the settlement value should be, et cetera. But experienced employment lawyers will tell you that all wrongful termination cases are not the same. People that have been employed for a number of years, much different risk than someone who's been employed for 6 weeks. And there's no way to capture that information efficiently. Well, our AI platform can capture that information. Not only can it capture the wrongful termination case, but if it's in the complaint, figure out how many years he or she's been employed, the basis for the termination, the injuries that he's alleging, the amount that he's alleging, the name of the plaintiff's lawyer, all these factors that come into play, we can capture in seconds and essentially then deploy that into a more comprehensive analytics program to give you a more nuanced view of the risk of your case. It's almost like a digital DNA fingerprint of a complaint.
What about how does the review of the work product work right now? Like when you get a draft of the answer, I mean, how much? Surely the lawyers are reviewing the work product before you file it in the court. I mean, what does that review process look like? Are you guys trying to capture data about what kind of changes are made, how much change needs to be made before it can be filed?
I can try to take a stab at it. Somebody asked me that question earlier today. So we're not tracking keystrokes, if maybe that's where you're getting at. And that's one way to do it, which is someone editing the document online, and can we see sort of the changes that are being made? No. Right now, once the user runs the complaint through and they get the answer and the initial set of written discovery, it ends up on the other side of the fence. So they will download it, and whatever the edit, through their basic Word, it's a Word document, so whatever they edit, we don't see those changes. I can tell you this, though, from a constant feedback that we get from attorneys, I think the best measure is really the time that they spend to finalize the documents that we're providing. In the early days, when we were just ramping up with Walmart, for instance, as an example, we knew that their outside counsel were spending maybe half an hour to an hour editing and finalizing the downloads, the documents that we produced. I recently contacted several of them, and now what's happened is that editing, finalizing time has gone to about 15 minutes or less. And the reason is quite simple, because now they realize that the system is very consistent. They have gotten used to it now. They have learned to trust what is coming out of our system. And so that by that fact alone, we can tell you that they're saving about 70 to 80% of time in drafting these documents.
Yeah. And when I was a partner, when I would wait to get work product from young associates, sometimes it was good. Sometimes
what's your words?
I know. Sometimes it was terrible, and that lack of consistency was a big problem. And that's one thing that we were striving to solve: is can we develop a platform that was consistent enough where the reviewing attorney can trust it. If there's any weaknesses, it'll know where it is, where its strengths, and then just move forward from that point. And I think we've done that.
Yeah. Well, I think, though, it's interesting that the way that's framed, because I think it also gets back to the training idea, right? Because associates may be inconsistent, but partners are inconsistent frequently as well, right? And maybe the work product that you thought was excellent, maybe Thomas wouldn't think it was, or someone else would want to do it differently. And I think one of the interesting things about these platforms is I think sometimes people worry about whether the machines will produce high enough quality, but when are we going to get to a point where people are going to say, look, the people shouldn't be editing and changing this. The machine is the highest quality product we have.
Well, I don't know if we ever want to. So from a practical standpoint, from a technical standpoint, I think that's very possible. From a practical standpoint, I think you always want the attorneys to sign off on the documents, because obviously we have ethical rules and licensing rules and regulatory issues. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, from a technical standpoint, it's possible, and I think it probably will get there. But you always do want the human eye to sign off on it.
Well, and there's a difference between reviewing it, like we supervise work that others have done, and when we outsource work and things like that, the lawyer's got the responsibility. But I mean, to me, the maybe the more important point to make, rather than pushing the envelope on this, is that I think sometimes people think, well, this is all just about efficiency, right? This is just pushing, but quality, right? We're getting higher quality when we use these tools as well.
Right.
All right, well, let's take a quick break right now. So before we continue our interview with James Lee, co-founder and CEO at LegalMation, and Thomas Suh, co-founder and COO at LegalMation, we're going to take a quick break for a message from our sponsor.
Thomson Reuters Westlaw Edge is the most intelligent legal research platform ever. Powered by state-of-the-art artificial intelligence, Westlaw Edge delivers the fastest answers and the most valuable insights, providing you with a clear strategic advantage. The advanced features on Westlaw Edge allow legal professionals to practice with a greater degree of certainty and confidence never before available. Visit westlawedge.com to learn more.
And we're back. Thank you for joining us. We're with James Lee, co-founder and CEO at LegalMation, and Thomas Suh, co-founder and COO at LegalMation. So guys, we've been talking a lot here about how your tool automating different parts of the litigation process is going to have an impact. Well, why don't you tell me more, I guess, let's say, about the impact that you think that your tool is going to have on the way we litigate cases, the way we formulate strategy, where lawyers going to really add value when they're using these tools? What do you think?
Yeah, very briefly, I mean, the automation of the early stage discovery documents and answers and pleadings that we are currently doing already, they're fantastic tools, if you will. But they're just a small sliver of what the real impact is on litigation strategy overall. And, from our view and from the view of clients, what this does now is it kind of shifts shifts a lot of the time that is usually spent on grunt work and scut work and gives the time back to attorneys to focus on strategy, on investigations, and other things like that. In addition to that, on the discovery request module that we have, if you're saving that much time in an activity that is typically very soul-crushing, if you will, and repetitive, and you're saving that much time, the leverage that was used by, let's say, a large firm against a smaller firm in litigating a case where, the term burying somebody in paperwork is no longer there. This levels the playing field. So I think litigation strategy can change because of that. It can change at many different levels as well. With the other things that we have planned on the data analytics side and many other things, I think we can fundamentally change how lawyers view this tool to litigate their cases.
Well, just based on what you guys have done already and what I've seen other stuff I see Itai Guerreri doing with Judicata. I mean, there's a lot of people who are doing stuff where I think mapping the law is laying the foundation to automate even more processes. I mean, I can't imagine we're too far away being able to automate the drafting of a motion to dismiss and the brief that would support it. I think there's still something there left for the lawyer to do. What does it look like for the lawyer? What's the lawyer's job when you have this first draft coming out of LegalMation of a brief supporting a motion to dismiss, for example?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the way I envision it, and I sometimes see lawyers freelancing a little bit, or like kind of, we talk about specializing, right? But how many lawyers really, really know the industry, really that they're working in, really, really know their client, the judge, right? What if we had more time to really be laser focused? I mean, might that be a way that litigation changes?
Yeah, I think, once we can push the value further up the chain, the better. I think we will all start experiencing better outcomes for clients. There have been many times, and I'm sure with you too, that you wished you had more time to prepare for a deposition.
Yeah.
You wished you had more time to prepare an opposition to a certain motion. You wished you had more time to prepare a cross-examination. Well, tools like this give lawyers that time so that they can start really practicing their craft to get better outcomes for clients.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things I hear about this space, and, we're making predictions at this point, but I've heard people say, oh, there's going to be more and more data and there won't be any cases tried. On the other hand, I think, there are a lot of cases when I was litigating that probably should have been tried, but it was just going to be too expensive to get it to the stage of trial. Maybe this will help us figure out more quickly what cases ought to be tried. And
yeah, I think once you have more detailed analytics, you will really get to see a real Moneyball approach to litigation. They use Moneyball in sports and baseball. Why aren't we using it in litigation, right? And so I think you're definitely going to see a day, and that day is going to come fairly soon, where clients are going to have more visibility, more transparency into the risk, more visibility and transparency into legal spend, and how much they should be settling cases.
So artificial intelligence, there's been some hype, but some people then kind of write it off. I mean, where do you think? Are we going to see a lot bigger things than even just what we're seeing right now? Like, what's the impact going to be in the legal industry longer term, do you think?
So I think LegalMation, at least, if you use artificial intelligence in the right circumstances for the right projects, for the right tasks, I think it's a fantastic solution. I think the big mistake that people make is having the impression that it can do it all, and eventually it's going to be able to do it all. I don't know about that. I think maybe we're far away from that sort of the idea of singularity or something of that sort, or a general AI, if you will. I'm not going to dismiss it offhand, but from what we have seen so far, it is fantastic at doing specific tasks in a big way and very fast. And so if you know how to leverage that for certain tasks in the legal field, I think it has tremendous effects. I do think it is going to improve. I think it's going to get probably faster, better, and all that good stuff. But I'm not sure if it'll have the impact of replacing an attorney's strategic thinking on a case, or perhaps being able to appeal to a jury while they're arguing in court, because those are sort of intangible, less data-driven, and more feel type of activities. And maybe AI will be able to do that someday, but I think we're far away from that.
What about, I know I've spoken with both of you guys, and you're interested in possible applications in the access to justice space. Tell me where you think this could really have an impact.
Yeah, for a lot of us at the company, the promise of AI and legal AI is not only to do the work that we're doing, but also to spread those advantages to as many people as possible. And what a lot of people don't realize is that this technology can be used in other contexts. And one of those contexts could include access to justice. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of pro bono organizations that are turning away people because they don't have the resources. Well, if we can help them, or if other AI companies can help pro bono organizations serve more people, that's a good thing. And that's one of the things that we're striving to do. We are talking to a couple of organizations that where we can apply our learning to increase veterans benefits, landlord-tenant type of disputes. That brings a smile to all of our faces because that's an example of where I think AI can really be used for good.
James, you mentioned a lecture at Stanford that we were both at. I was at Stanford with Jay Mundell, and we put on a boot camp there for law, computer science, and graduate business school students around exponential innovations, AI, and law, getting them to think about learning about these tools so they can evaluate them, thinking about business models, thinking about the application of law and ethics in that space as well. And you were kind enough to come and spend a full day plus with us as a coach to those student teams. What do you guys think we ought to be doing in law school in light of the technologies and the way practice is changing?
So that's a great question. And, there's a couple law schools that we're talking to right now where we're talking about having some students help annotate. So train a machine learning platform, maybe even use that so that the students at the clinic start using that tool so that it's a sort of an ecosystem at particular law schools where they're able to use AI both from a practical sense as users, but also as another practical sense where they begin to really understand and how to train an AI system. And, from a training perspective, I think that's fantastic.
What about just more holistically? Do you think we need to be changing the way we train lawyers in law school in light of the way the marketplace is changing? I see you nodding, yes, Thomas.
Yeah,
what do you think
it's sort of like, at least for me, my opinion is that, there's a place for, I think we need to shift. It's sort of like these technical schools, right? Not the general, universities and liberal arts schools, but more the technically very focused type of training platforms that you have. I think law schools need to shift to that. I think law schools for too long have been more caught up in the theory of things and the possibility of things and studying sort of the old cases. And that's important stuff, but I think it's got to become more practical, meaning maybe partner up with actual attorneys that are practicing and maybe increase that access, get them more hands-on training, right, so that they're ready to roll as soon as they step out. Let's face it, corporations are specifically telling their law firms not to put first-year associates on their cases because the typical first-year associate, at least today, as of today, their value is limited because of what they know or really because of what they don't know. So I think if you create a program where the first-year junior associates are out of law school but ready to roll into a litigation shop or whatever other firm, but they're able to produce and contribute meaningfully right off the bat, then I think that's where the focus should be. And a lot of law schools are thinking that way. They're becoming more training grounds as opposed to this theory academic arena.
Yeah. And then I look at the kind of products you guys are building and what I want to do, like what we're doing at Northwestern. I want to train the lawyers who are going to see the opportunities that folks like you can help them deliver on, but also know how to ask the tough questions to make sure they're fulfilling their professional obligations, make sure these tools actually work the way they're supposed to, and they understand really the benefits and risks of using the tools. But, all right, well, thank you very much for joining us, you guys. Can you just tell us, James, starting with you, about how listeners can reach you if they want to get in contact?
Give me your home address and your personal email. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, I have no idea they would.
Well, LegalMation, I know LegalMation is on Twitter. I mean, you guys would need some sales training, I think. LegalMation's on Twitter.
We're not Twitter as
you've
much
got
as the president, but we do our best. Listeners can reach us through our website. We have a contact form.
Okay.
We're happy to put them on our list and distribute as we have more news. And certainly, if there's any interest out there to see a demo, they can certainly, we can put them in touch with one of our folks.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us here in New York during Legalweek. This has been another edition of Law Technology Now on the Legal Talk Network. If you like what you heard today, please rate us on Apple Podcasts. Join us next time for another edition of Law Technology Now. I'm Dan Linna, signing off.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.